Welcome to the next episode of ASX Market Goss, where we chat to the people behind a small cap listed company on the ASX, their journey, their motivation, and their experiences. And our next guest is, of course, from Cali Metals, and their ASX code is KM1. Paul Adams is with me. Paul, welcome first and foremost. Tell us the Cali Metals story. What is it in a nutshell?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, Tim, actually, because we had a rather different birth. We were born as a lithium company just over 2 years ago. We had a very, very successful IPO back in January 24. And we came out of the amalgamation of assets within a couple of companies. So they were primarily from Kalamazoo. So we had lithium assets in the Pilbara and also a large tenement package in Victoria, New South Wales in the Southern Lock and Fold Belt. Prospective again for lithium. And we managed to get hold of the lithium rights to Karora's grounds, and Karora, a Canadian gold miner essentially. They had very large land package south of Kalgoorlie, and we managed to get the lithium rights to that ground. So, you know, we've been on the boards now for a couple of years. We have a very unusual register. After our IPO, which was tremendously successful, Mineral Resources came in and bought aggressively on market. So our top 3 shareholders own about 45% of the company. So successful IPO in lithium at the time, and of course things changed.
That they did. Now, speaking of interesting stories, you yourself have an interesting story because you bought a one-way ticket out of the UK to Australia back in the 80s.
Yeah.
And you're still here.
I know, it's incredible,
What's
isn't it?
going on?
It's the weather.
What was the attraction? You obviously you graduated geology graduate, came out to Australia. What was behind the move towards him?
So look, I think, 1986, 87, when I was looking to come out, oil market in the UK was flat. I mean, there were no jobs. British Coal used to employ 1 person a year. Like it was, with the number of graduates coming out of the UK, there was no way that the job opportunities were over there. So came across basically on a working holiday. I was prepared to pull pints and clean toilets and work in picking fruit farms and that sort of thing. But as it turned out, managed to get a job as a geologist, never really looked back.
And you got that job fairly quickly. If you have a look at your profile on LinkedIn and others, you were in there getting your hands dirty pretty much straight away.
Yeah, basically straight away. So a very good mate of mine from uni, we wrote letters in those days. And he said, look, can't promise you a job, but you got to come out here. You got to take a risk and put yourself in a position where it's actually easier for people to say yes. So that's what I did. I just came out, went straight up to the bush, and within a week managed to get 2 or 3 job offers and took the one that I thought was best.
When you say you went straight up to the bush, where are we talking?
Mount Magnet.
That's hot.
Yes.
That's bush.
I arrived in June, so that made it a little bit easier. But yeah, it was, as the summer got on, it was a bit different to what I'd experienced in the UK.
And I suppose on the back of your working life changes for you, so you don't go back to the UK. You've been here ever since, 40 years, I think it is.
Yes, that's right,
now.
yeah.
Was there ever a pull to go back?
To be honest, no. Obviously with family. I helped my family come across, at least my mum and dad, about 7 or 8 years later. I love going back to the UK for a holiday. I've got friends there, the history. It's just a wonderful place from that point of view. I don't want to live there anymore.
Still get your hands dirty, even though, we talk about, your role as sort of like the managing director of this business, but do you get your hands dirty? Do you like to feel the earth underneath your boots?
I do, as often as I can. I mean, obviously in an MD role, a lot of your time is, chief marketing officer and dealing with legals and, the administrative side of the business, which is not always that interesting, to be honest. I mean, I do enjoy the legal side of it, transactions and working through those. I find that quite rewarding. But as an MD, you don't get out as much as perhaps you'd like to.
A little bit later in this chat, we're going to ask you to pitch for Cali and what if someone is out there thinking about whether they should invest, and you've talked about the story and who are your, the 45% of those who have invested into the company. But I want to talk a bit more about a bit of a career change. I don't know if this is right or wrong. You might be able to set me on the path. Were you in real estate for a bit?
Yeah, I was.
What was going on there?
Yeah,
That was
yeah.
early 90s, was it?
It was, and I'd spent 5 years working in FIFO essentially by that time, and not being from Australia, not being from Perth, it was very hard in those days, the rosters were terrible. I started on an 8-week on, 4 days off, and then I thought it was great when it was 6 weeks on and 1 week off. So it's very hard to establish a friend network. So one of the ways I thought about doing that was actually to come back to Perth, get a little bit more established in Perth, maybe a new career, at least temporarily. And real estate seemed to be an interesting career choice. It was sales, which I think is incredibly important. I think everybody should have a time in sales. I think it teaches you an awful lot about yourself, actually, more than anything else.
I want to take me further down that one. What, when you say it teaches you about yourself, is it the hard sell? Is it the communication with other people? Is it with dealing with people's livelihoods, in particular real estate? I'm in real estate as we speak now, and it is such a lot of people have marked real estate agents as, well, you don't want to be a real estate agent. They just, they're ripping people off. But you are dealing with a lot of people at difficult times in their life, whether it be deaths, financial problems, marriage issues.
Sure.
It's not an easy gig. So explain why people should do sales.
Because I think it gives you the opportunity to learn about yourself. I think that is primarily what I got out of that time in real estate. And I was in it for maybe 2.5 years before I really realized that, no, actually my future lay in the mining industry.
So it wasn't that you didn't like real estate. You just genuinely felt
that I wanted to go back and utilize my skills. It's a hard one when you actually go back and try and analyze it, but yes, you need to listen more than talk, right? I think that is the absolute key. You put yourself into what for me were very uncomfortable positions. I'm not a born salesman like I knew some of my colleagues were. So for me, it was quite hard. It was very challenging. And therein, of course, lies the learnings, right? Because unless you actually push yourself out of your comfort zone, you're not really going to learn very much.
It's absolutely a wonderful mindset that you've got there. Can you remember way back in the early 90s what your biggest sale was in real estate, roughly?
Well, houses were a bit cheaper then.
Very much so. And a lot harder to sell, I'd imagine.
Yeah,
they
of course.
They go off the shelf a little bit quicker now.
Of course they do, and, at the time that I was in it, sort of early 90s, high interest rates, right?
Massive.
So I think something that really stood out to me once was for a young guy, you talk about people in pivotal moments in their lives. It was his first property. He was buying investment property. His father lived in Claremont. He was buying a property in Vic Park, and trying to get him over the line. He knew he wanted it. His dad knew he wanted it, but we just had to get him over the line somehow. And you use various techniques, but they weren't pushy. And sometimes actually saying nothing is the best, because it builds the tension within themselves and they make the right decision.
So that being said, those 2.5 years, when you go back into mining and you go back into the world that you had trained to be in, were you better?
One hopes that you're better. You're a little bit more mature. And I think because you know yourself a little bit better, you're perhaps being able to make better decisions or ask for help when you don't know, and to be a little bit more confident, right? And so when I went back in, I was probably round about 28. And I think in a lot of people's lives, that is a bit of a pivotal moment, in their maturity. it's a multiple of 7. I'm actually quite a big believer in pivotal moments in one's lives in multiples of 7, believe it or not. And I think it's definitely the right choice for me to go back.
Can you explain your multiple of 7?
Okay, so when you're 7, you start to become more self-aware as a child. At 14, you're starting to find yourself, your place in the world. 21, you've got that stepping out perhaps from university or an apprenticeship, and you're stepping into the adult world. And I think by the time you're 28, you're probably now looking very much towards cementing your career and looking towards success.
9 sevens are 63. I've got a couple of years to go before I get there. What should I be doing at the age of 63? Should I almost be thinking about hanging up the boots?
Well, it's up to you, Tim.
I should have made a go of this life by then. I would imagine. It's again an interesting insight. Mountaineering's an interest of yours. Is that true?
Yeah.
Have you done the Himalayas or something?
Yeah. I've been there nearly 10 times.
10
now.
times. Does it get any easier?
No.
Do you walk different trails?
Yeah, different areas. But I got bitten by a mountaineering bug quite early on in '94, and went back almost every year until '99. On a major Himalayan expedition in '99, we got 2 people to the summit. So that was the world's 5th highest mountain.
Were you one of those?
No, I was very much still a novice at high altitude mountaineering. But to be part of an international expedition on a peak like that was an incredible experience. They say mountaineering is 95% sheer boredom and 5% sheer terror. I think that's probably true. There were really difficult parts of that expedition. And again, you come away a slightly different person having gone through those experiences.
Physical and mental?
Yes, definitely more mental, actually. I mean, hard physically, but you train for it. Mental side of it can be very, very stressful, particularly if you're high up on a mountain. There's the ever-present danger of rockfall, avalanche, a wrong foot placement, can be catastrophic.
So
Teamwork, but also, very much teamwork. It's definitely a team sport, but also to have the skill and the confidence and the care to take care of yourself primarily, because you don't want to be a burden on others.
Any more aspirations in the...
No.
No, you're done?
Done.
Have you turned your hand to Ironman?
Yes.
You're an Ironman. You look very svelte. You fill out that shirt, very trim. So you must work out, and you must keep fit, and you must ride a bike, and you probably run.
I do.
Swim.
Yeah. Yes.
You do all that sort of stuff. Where do you
do.
find the time?
It's getting harder. When I did the first one, I was a NED on 2 or 3 companies. So that afforded me a lot of time to be able to do it. Now, as an MD, in an executive role, it's a bit hard. You just got to find the time early in the mornings, late in the afternoons.
Again, it's good for the mind, though.
Yes.
That exercising, we always talk about.
I think the mind-body connection is extremely important. And, I think perhaps for a lot of young people today, perhaps that's what's missing. I know there's a big explosion in gyms around the country, which is great. I mean, one of my sons actually both of them are there 4 or 5 nights a week. But I think for a lot of young people, that might be missing in their lives. And that mind-body connection is proven. It's scientifically proven to be really, really important.
Have you done a Busselton Ironman?
Yeah, I did the one in Busselton.
And are you planning to do more?
Yeah, I've just signed up again actually this year. So
what's your strength?
Just started
what's your out of the disciplines? What's your
strength? Yeah, well, they say sometimes, why be bad at one sport when you can be bad at 3? And I certainly put myself in that category. I'm aiming for maybe a 12-hour 30 finish time if everything goes really well. And that'll put me probably mid-pack in my age group.
Yeah, absolutely. It's quite motivating. Drums? You play the drums?
Yes, in a fashion. Yeah, was in a little jazz trio for a little while. You know, I'd always been a frustrated drummer ever since I was a teenager. And, you know, life was kind to me in the last few years, and I managed to buy a kit and start learning, and got in with a bunch of really nice people, and we did a couple of gigs and, you know, cover sort of stuff. But I really enjoyed it. At the end of the day, it was perhaps not conducive to my training because, you know, I'd started Ironman training by then. So nights in the pub were perhaps not the best
All of
training.
this being said, and we talk of, you know, the real estate, the mountaineering, the drums, the Ironman. How much of all of that do you take into being an MD of Cali Metals?
I think, yeah, that's a really good question. I think it's a sort of a rounded nature. I don't profess to be an expert in any one area. I like people, you know, but I think in terms of a leadership style, I think it's tenacity. And, you know, they say, what's the word? It's like a long will. Sometimes things take time. And I think the discipline that you need in endurance sports can transfer into your working life because it's a process. You need to be disciplined with your approach. And sometimes things take a different turn, and you need to be able to be a little bit like a willow, right? Sort of bending with the circumstances, trying to find a way through that ultimately gets to the goal that you're after. And I think all of that has played a part.
Okay, so that being said, Cali Metals is a baby, as you mentioned, only
Yeah.
been going a couple of years, and it's been an interesting journey inside that 2 years.
Yeah.
Are you tracking to become a bit bigger than a baby?
Well, we are, and you know, I had a wonderful experience in Spectrum Metals, where we made a wonderful discovery. I think it was Australia's highest grade gold discovery back in 1999, I think it was. 2019, and we sold that project to Ramelius, who are currently mining it, very high grade, and I think that was a real taste of success. Not only for myself, but obviously for all our shareholders. And the aim, I suppose, with Cali is to try and do that again, right? Sort of having that success is what we're all after. And I work for the shareholders. And, you know, I see my role as very much building value for not only shareholders, but all stakeholders.
Are you getting that vibe now then? Are you getting the vibe as to what you
So
did before?
it's kind of interesting, you know, obviously as a lithium company, we were in a pretty sour place just from a market point of view shortly after we listed. And we then sort of turned our attention to some gold exploration on our existing lease portfolio. And we've come up with a really, really interesting discovery, virgin discovery in an area where it actually shouldn't be from a geological point of view. You know, they say gold is where you find it, so don't be too model driven. But this thing is 3 kilometers long. It's at surface. The grade appears to be holding up. We've had an initial drilling program, which looks quite positive.
When did all this happen?
Oh, this is only within the last sort of 6 to 9 months. So looking forward, I suppose we're looking at phase 2, and we're in that phase now. We hope to be drilling next month, so we can make this bigger and again sort of emulate some of that success we had previously.
In a moment, you can pitch for anyone out there, prospective investors, and for where Cali is going. Now I'm going to ask you we've already gone down the personal line a little bit, but some really snapshot questions that a lot of people can judge the type of man you are, Paul Adams, of course, Managing Director of Cali Metals. And for those who are listening, ASX code KM1
Correct.
on the ASX code. What's your coffee order of choice if you drink coffee?
A skinny flat white with a single shot.
Okay, close. I'm a double shot, single flat white.
There you go.
Has to be super hot.
Yeah,
Are you hot?
lukewarm one is not great.
No, yeah, correct. Now, if you have pods in your ears, what would I be thinking you'd be listening to?
Either a podcast or the American band Tool.
Tell us a bit about the podcast. What are your podcasts of choice?
So I've become a bit of a history buff over the last 3 or 4 years, discovered podcasts quite late. I love all aspects of history, from, ancient history right the way through to political history in the 1970s or Nixon or, obviously there's history being made right now, right? So always an interesting time.
Well, I don't know if we can, but I'll just, our man Jed behind the cameras here who pulls this production together. Can I promote Realty Bites with Paul because he's looking for a podcast? So Realty Bites is another podcast that Jed and myself put together for, powered by the agency Realty Bites. It's about those behind the scenes in real estate here in Western Australia. Subscribe if you can, Mr. Adams.
Okay.
We'd appreciate it. Only 25 minutes of your time.
Yes.
Thank you very much. So, and tell us about the band. What's the band?
Tool.
Tool.
Yeah. They were here in Perth, actually.
Were
Managed
they?
to get to see
What do
them.
they sing?
Oh, hard. It's it's kind of,
Is it hardcore music?
it's complex
Oh, here we go.
music. Yeah,
Complex
very
music.
complex.
It doesn't sound like I would be putting it in. Is it
It's-
loud?
Yes. It's not easy listening, Tim,
Oh,
but it is.
you don't strike me as that type of guy.
Well,
Sorry.
no. Yeah.
Oh, you've got your drumming background. That's
Yeah.
right. Oh, yeah. I should have known.
Yeah.
I should have known.
So Danny Carey's probably one of the best drummers in the world.
Okay.
Perhaps that's where I'm going.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know if our man Jed is capable, but he's pretty capable. But our man who pulls these podcasts together, figured we might be having a little bit of Tool in the background if we can. We might crossfade a bit of Tool in. I might just pause for a moment and have a listen to a bit of Tool. Yeah, okay. You be the judge. Work-life balance. I know you've got a young family. You're talking about the boys who go to the gym. Have you got the work-life balance right? It sounds like you've got a lot going on. Very health conscious, clearly, judging by that. But have you got the balance right?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of lucky in that, the family have always been really supportive, and, the family have a health conscious bias as well. So, my kids are over 18 now, they're growing up, but they're still very active physically. My wife is very active physically. We've got a lovely property in the hills on 6 acres that keeps us busy. We all have interest in current affairs. I think it's a nice mix to be able to have common interests, both intellectually and on the physical side as
You
well.
talked about the hills.
Yeah.
It just comes flooding back to me. Steiner School, you're a board member of Steiner?
Yes, no, I am. Yeah.
Are you a believer in that type of education?
I am. I think, education these days is in a bit of trouble in Australia. And I think the Steiner system offers a quieter introduction. A lot of kids actually really thrive on it. There's not as much pressure. The syllabus is the same, don't get me wrong. Although kids start their formal learning a little bit later, they actually catch up by the end of primary school. So for all our kids went through Steiner, basically primary and secondary. They all graduated in year 12 and they're all doing their thing. So for them, it's worked really well. Steiner education is something that I think young parents who are perhaps questioning where education is going in Australia should be looking at it.
Give me one paragraph of what Steiner learning is. School.
Steiner learning is much more child-centered, and it progresses along with the emotional, physical, and mental development of the child. So it's very child-centered, and it's taught in a different way. Subjects are taught in blocks rather than an hour here and an hour there. It's concentrated learning, and I think children are responding to that very well. And there isn't such a heavy focus on homework or exams in those early years.
If you were to open your own restaurant, what would you cook? What's your go-to?
Oh, it would have to be a fusion of some kind, because I have got no particular, go-to in terms of a meal.
Alrighty. Is there a sporting team that gets you on the edge of your seat?
No. I used to support Arsenal as a kid, and
You should be supporting them now.
yes, they're doing extremely well
I've got
at the
a
moment.
16-year-old boy
Yeah.
playing for.
Yep.
Scored a goal the other day.
Youngest ever to score a Premier
Yes.
League goal.
Still going to school.
Yes.
It's an incredible
So
story.
I used to go as a kid to Highbury when I was in the UK. We used to go with my dad. But I think, every time the Tour de France is on, the Spring Classics, I'm in there looking at that.
Alrighty. Kelly Metals. Pitch. Why should people keep an eye on Kelly Metals going forward in this incredible, well, for the want of a better word, and I'm not a market guru or a mining guru, but it sounds like it's on a steep incline over a very short period of time. It's got a spike.
Yeah, I think two things. We refocused rather than pivoted our focus towards gold exploration at a time where gold was, of course, the commodity of choice. Having said that, it was very, very important to keep our lithium assets together. And many lithium juniors have gone away from the sector completely. They've relinquished their lithium ground. We've kept all that together. It's in a great spot. It's right in that lithium corridor south of Kalgoorlie, surrounded by lithium mines. That is latent value for shareholders. And we all know that lithium now is starting to come back. That price commodity cycle is starting to turn. In fact, it has turned. Elsewhere, our gold exploration up in the Pilbara, that's starting to ramp up now. Phase 2 at Marble Bar. We've just done a deal with our ex JV partner at our Doms Hill tenement. We bought back 30% of their interest for a couple of $100,000. We thought that was a fantastic deal. There's lots of gold potential on those tenements as well. So I think we have a two-pronged approach. Lithium, latent value, we might be drilling those later on this year or perhaps early next year, market dependent. But our gold exploration is currently our focus. We've just raised $7 million. We're fully funded for the next year, 18 months, and we're going to go hard.
It's been a great chat. It's a healthy chat. You're incredibly motivating, and all the very best with all the Ironman, whether you get back and climb in those mountains and anything else that you take your hand to. It sounds like you know what you're doing. And thanks for joining us on ASX Market Goss.
Thanks, Tim. It's been great.
Good on you. There he is there.
Thank you.
Paul Adams is joining us. It is Kelly Metals, and that is KM1 on the ASX code. Until the next time, it's been ASX Market Goss.